I became a student of finance, but what I did not learn was how to run a business. I discovered the concept of mentorship and my life changed.
Doing business for 27 years. Didn't come from money, now have it, want to teach others. Edward Collins.
I specialize in tax, estate, and business law. Built and scaled multiple companies, and I've taken it to 8 figures each. What I do now is I teach other business owners how to achieve what I've achieved.
$3 million, that's a decent number of dollars. How's that changed your business?
It's been my fastest path to 7 figures. If you're creating real wealth, you also want to be protecting real wealth. I think taxation is theft. I try to break away from that system. Now what I do is teach other people how to do it.
Do you think that the system that we currently live in is unfixable?
Historically speaking, fiat currencies collapse because of inflation. If you input into a closed system more of something, it's going to impact the system. Of all the money that has ever been printed and put into circulation in the history of the United States, nearly 70% was created in the past 4 years. The only way to fix it is just to become educated.
You have internet fame, dude.
A little bit.
You do though. Do you remember the very first time we met?
I do.
It was very late at night at All Hacking Live.
Very late at night.
Very late.
I think it was like past 2 a.m.
Yeah. And I was like, "You're the Instagram dude, aren't you?" Like, yeah. I don't have TikTok. I think it's a Chinese spot. But how are you adjusting? I want to say internet fame, but like, what is it like having? I mean, $3 million is that's a decent number of followers. Yeah,
it is.
Like, has that changed your life at all in any way, significantly?
It has from a business context.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just a normal guy.
Yeah.
Like I have a very unique, unfair advantage in what I talk about because I'm an expert in what I talk about.
Yeah.
And I actually know this stuff deeply. So I'm able to talk about it pretty much off the cuff.
Yeah.
And I appreciate all of the time, effort, and energy it took me to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I can understand that. Yeah. Not everyone sees that because we live in this Instagram world where all you see is the destination, not the journey.
Yeah.
But the journey is what matters. So while I am very, very grateful for it, I try not to let it go to my head because it's still kind of weird because I'm just a guy.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like different generations see things differently, right? Like, I mean, I grew up, I'm a millennial, right? So it's like right there on the cusp of like social media was kind of the big boom. And like early on it wasn't there, but then it was. And so I kind of grew up with it. Like anyone that's like, I don't know, over the age of older than I am, right? There's like, I didn't grow up with this. This is so weird if they get it. But I want to have a deep conversation with you. I have a list of questions that I want to ask and get into. I've actually surveyed my audience. I'm very excited for this.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was an honor to have you here for real.
Answer the internet. Here we go.
Yeah, really though. Yes. So I'm really, really big on audience and community coming back to that. Just a brief context because I do want to turn it over to you.
Sure.
But just so you're aware, like I grew up I got started like nine years ago or so on Instagram, grew and managed a bunch of followers, was all community focused, all community audience, like Facebook groups, things like that. Then several years back, my brother passed away and things shifted. And I was like, cool, let me learn business and money and all that. Did that. And it was like network, right? Mm-hmm. Not so much audience.
Yeah.
And now we've kind of come back around and I'm like, cool, we're back to that. And so involving the audience is something that's very important to us. And so I'm excited. And I want to turn it over to you. Give us some context on your backstory.
Sure.
Like, I think that's important. Like, I'd love to just dive in, but for someone watching that's never heard of you before, right? Give us some context of who you are, your background, how you got into this, and end it with, what do you do? Right?
Okay. Well, if we go all the way back, right? I'm fifth to 6 kids. I come from a very, very humble background. Like my family, we worked really hard just to get up to the poverty line.
Yep.
So I did not come from money. Pretty much everything I learned about money as a child was completely wrong. And I mean, that's the case for so many people, right? So I'm not unique in that regard.
Yep.
But I learned that I actually do like money, like when I was a kid, and I wasn't really ashamed of it. And I started figuring out ways where I could make money, odd jobs, selling things, pretty much anything I possibly could. Now, this is again way before the internet became a thing. And I essentially just went through the process of figuring it out, like on my own. And some things that I figured out early on also were wrong. And it took me a while to get my footing.
And where'd you grow up?
I grew up in southern New Jersey, a little town called Woodbury.
You're in Miami now, right?
I live in Boca Raton, but our production studio is in Miami.
Yeah, people don't know the difference, dude.
It's South Florida. South Florida. It's beautiful weather. I don't have to shovel snow. It's all good. I get to go visit wintry locations if I want.
Yeah.
If I want.
If you want.
But I mean, I grew up from humble beginnings, if you will, and I worked my way up through school. I was very good at school without really trying. So that sort of gave me this like arrogance about me. And I suffered with that for a while because I believed I knew everything and I didn't know anything, to be honest. I was academically very, very good. I excelled in everything I did from a coursework standpoint. And I sort of fell in love with this idea when I was a teenager of going into the FBI.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a very, very, very strange thing. So I set myself on that track. And after graduating from university, I went off and I started working for the United States Department of Justice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
I was all in.
Wow, that's crazy. Where'd you go to school?
Undergrad, Caldwell University. Okay. And then eventually went to law school, Seton Hall University of Law. But when I was in DOJ, I learned like what the government really is. I got to see behind the curtain. And I did not like what I saw. So I made a decision to leave pretty abruptly. I made like this like very interesting decision, and I was escorted out of the building as soon as I made it. And I essentially handed my resignation, and because of my clearances, I couldn't stay. So they sent me off, but I didn't have a plan B. But I had always had this interest in money, and I learned a little bit about it, but not enough to really truly be effective, but just enough to pass the time. So what I did without the plan B is I started going around to the local libraries in northern New Jersey and teaching workshops on how to budget. And I just started doing that just to pass the time. And I can remember I was charging $5 to attend the workshop, but I was spending like $4.50 per person on like the coffee and the all that stuff. So obviously I was not brilliant when it came to money at that point, but I knew enough to teach.
Yeah. The market's big enough for budgeting.
Exactly. Right? And someone came up to me at one of the workshops and asked me if he could buy me lunch the next day. And I was like, yes, because I can't afford lunch on my own. So I'm definitely going to eat on your dime. And he asked me if I ever given any thought to financial services. And honestly, I hadn't. But then I started doing a little bit of research and I'm like, this could be interesting. And I launched my very first business as an adult, my own financial planning firm, back in 1998. So I'm old.
I was 4.
Yeah.
Right? But you're not old. You're 47.
Yeah,
but I hope that's not old, dude.
48, about to be 49. To me, I'm young.
That's good. I'm hoping so.
I have at least another 100 years in me.
There you go. That's what I like to hear. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I started trying to build that business, and I became a student of finance, so I started learning things about money.
Yeah.
But what I did not learn at all at that point in my life was how to run a business. So I was outside looking in. To call me anything else other than a failure, you were very, very kind, right? If you called me anything else but that, because I didn't make money for 4 years. I went in massive debt just trying to look the part. And I finally discovered the concept of mentorship, and someone took me under their wing and started telling me what the truth about money was. And I started applying that, and my life changed.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because when I admitted to myself, like I always thought that the only way to make money was be an entrepreneur, be a business owner, right? And so that's when I got into it. And then it was like 5 years of not making any money. And it was like, I don't have a business. I just need to learn how to sell stuff, right? And so then I was like, well, screw it. I'm not going to do a business, right? And then I made money, right? And then I realized I was a terrible business owner, right? And that's
many people are. In fact, most people who call themselves business owners aren't business owners at all.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, the business owns them, and they just simply own a lot of jobs.
Yep. I hired my first integrator like 4 months ago.
Oh, congratulations. Change your life, right?
Change my life. And shout out to, Dan Henry?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So Dan Henry, COO Joe, I called him up because I work with Dan, and I said,
he's over in Dubai now.
Yeah, he's in Dubai. Yeah. And I love Dan to death. I know his wife is his son, and like really good friends with him. But I called his COO and I'm like, I need to hire an operator. And I was like, I've got someone, I don't know, like, can you interview him or her? And he's like, sure. And so he interviews her for like an hour and a half. And he's like, hire her. And I'm like, okay. And then I found out how much she was, and I was like,
oh yeah.
And then like in the first month, I was like, I would pay you double.
Yeah.
So, okay. So
so I built that practice, failed miserably in the beginning, iterated, and built and scaled that, and evolved into a full wealth management firm.
Wow.
And then along the way, I noticed that a number of my clients weren't getting services in other areas of their financial life. And I tried to first go out and find individuals that were already providing those services and maybe create alliances.
Yeah.
I just didn't find people that I aligned with. So I built it myself. So I built my own accounting firm, my own CFO practice, all of the supplemental services that surround the wealth management firm. And then I got to a point where things were just going gangbusters, and the businesses really didn't need me to keep going gangbusters. So
were these separate businesses that all kind of fit in? Yeah.
Separate companies. Yep. Again, I'm a student of what I teach. So the concept of the right structure matters, right? If you're interested in creating real wealth, you also want to be protecting real wealth at the same time, because there are a lot of have-nots out there that want what you have. So I put into practice the constructs that I teach to business owners today. And then I got to a point in 2014 where it didn't need me, so I sort of stepped aside.
Did you exit, or did you still?
I did exit. I still own all of our companies, but I set it up so that I didn't have to be present fully.
And why not exit? Why keep them?
Because I'm greedy. I mean, I'm forever grateful for everything I have. I'm just never satisfied.
Yeah. Okay. And exiting to you is like, why? If
it's making money, it doesn't need me as much.
So what do you do now? Because I think a lot of people see you on Instagram and TikTok and all the things, and you have really good content, dude. Really genuinely. And everyone I talk to about, in fact, someone I like I said, I surveyed it, and do you know Tony Watley?
Doesn't sound familiar.
Anyway,
possibly.
But he commented on it, and he goes, he's got great content. That was just his only comment. He's just like, great content.
Thank you.
And so I think a lot of people see that and they go, okay, like, cool. Like, are you an attorney? Are you like a legal guy?
So I'm a lawyer. I specialize in tax, estate, and business law. I'm also a serial entrepreneur. I've built and scaled multiple companies, and I've taken each one of them up to and through 6, 7, and even 8 figures each, plus our real estate portfolio, residential and commercial. And essentially what I do now is I teach other business owners how to achieve what I've achieved, right? Because the way I think about things is that I think you're always best positioned to teach the younger version of yourself. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at individuals who are 6-figure earners who want to be 7-figure earners, 7-figure who want to be 8-figure, right? I've been through those steps. Now, maybe my steps aren't the exact same steps that you're going through, but you can learn vicariously through others. And that's what I do now. I spend a lot of my time helping to coach business owners to achieve what I've achieved. And I try to share as much financial literacy content out on the internet, because the internet is filled with trash. It's just so bad. So much junk out there.
Yeah.
But again, it's sort of like a bit disingenuous to say that I knew it all back then, because I didn't, right? I was just as filled with all of that wrong information. And it took some transformative experiences throughout my life to help flush it out of my system so that I can learn what's true. So that's what I try to do now.
Okay. So actually, let's go this way. Why entrepreneurs? Cause there's it's interesting. I got in the entrepreneurship world thinking that was the money market, only to find out that entrepreneurs are a small, the money market like this, right? So why them?
This is I'm giving you some real secret sauce behind the scenes. It's really selfish of me, right? Because I want to change the world for the better, and I know that I can't do it myself. I just know I can't. I'm not naive. I've seen the government. I know how it works. One voice, I'm not going to change the entire system. And I hate the government. I think that the IRS is ridiculous. I think taxation is theft. And I figure if I can teach entrepreneurs to be amazing stewards of their resources, learn how to keep more of every dollar that they make, instead of sending it to Washington, D.C., where I know it just won't go to good use, I'd rather it stay in their hands so that they can deploy it in ways that actually change the world. That's why I do it.
That's an interesting thing. It's funny. I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. I don't know if you can.
I can tell.
Big fan. And he said at some point, he's like, when it comes to wealth, and when it comes to money, he's like, it's just all a matter of capital allocation. Right?
Absolutely.
And he's like, would you rather have that in the hands of a private citizen that has a proven track record, or the government that is? And I think that's essentially what you're alluding to, right?
Yeah. Imagine, think about anything government related. Can you honestly say that it is efficient and effective? Anything?
Yeah, actually, so 99.9%. Absolutely not. And I moved to Colorado, and I found one thing.
Okay, tell me.
And it's local.
Okay,
local.
And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but keep going.
At the state level. So the state of Colorado, which, and I'm very libertarian, right?
Yeah.
And I believe my personal religious views on things is not necessarily how the government should be run, right?
Correct.
So marijuana is legal here, right?
Okay.
And they take all the tax dollars from marijuana and they put it directly towards roads and schools.
Okay.
And I will tell you, man, our roads and schools are actually pretty darn good. Like everything's plowed, everything's taken care of. Like overall, like I'm very, very impressed with that. It's the only first thing ever that I've ever found where I'm like, maybe something's working.
So here's the interesting way I would look at it. Yeah. So if you go into like New York City as an example,
oh boy,
just as an example,
and
you go into any of the high-rise buildings, you get on an elevator. On that elevator, there will be a sticker, and it'll say "Inspected by so and so's name." That person that does the inspection is a government employee, and if that elevator falls and with passengers inside, that government employee will not lose their job, right? Because they are not at risk. Right. So think about the concept of government doing for what they believe to be good. And again, I believe that there are some amazing human beings that work in government.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I think that the concept of government itself is fundamentally flawed because they are not at risk. Yeah. Right. Realistically speaking. Yeah. Now let's say for a moment that you change the rules. And in fact, it's not the government that inspects it. It's the insurance company that inspects it. I guarantee that inspection is going to be great.
Yeah.
Why? Because the insurance company's liable, right? They're financially on the hook. Personally, their company is going to be threatened by a challenge that occurs in that ecosystem. The same thing happens across all government infrastructure, right? Even with what you were describing, there's still not an individual that's personally accountable for the outcome. So that is a bit disconnected.
I'm telling you, I hate the government
from efficiency and effectiveness. That doesn't necessarily mean it can't do some amazing things from time to time, but if you're a betting man, where are the odds?
Yeah. Well, okay. So then, do you think that I'm pretty hardcore in the camp of the system that we currently live in is unfixable and on a death spiral to collapsing, right?
I don't know about that. I definitely think it's unfixable, meaning by one individual, right? It would have to be a collective effort. And I just don't think you can get enough human beings to collectively agree on anything at this point, especially with the way the state of everything is going.
Yeah.
What I do believe, though, is if I can get enough entrepreneurs, because an entrepreneur is different, right? An entrepreneur is like an individual who's willing to take a risk that the vast majority of humans just aren't willing to do. And the interesting thing about an entrepreneur, too, is they are builders, right? They create. And the concept of giving them amazing capability of stewardship over financial assets puts them in the driver's seat close to home.
Yes.
Because I think that if government should exist, it should exist as close to the people as possible so we can literally see what they do with our dollars because the government doesn't make money. It simply takes money and redistributes it. And I have major problems with how it chooses to redistribute it most of the time.
Yeah. I would say that if I could choose where my tax dollars went, I'd be way more open to paying taxes.
And exactly. And I think every single person would, right? If there was true transparency, but we're talking about a ledger that is in the trillions of dollars. I mean, that number is so astronomical, most people can't relate to it. A rounding error is in the billions of dollars, right? They can misplace billions of dollars, and those dollars would literally transform human lives here in the United States. But again, the decisions that get made government-wide are challenging. So I choose to help entrepreneurs because, again, if they become amazing stewards, they can put those dollars to work close to home and actually change the world.
Okay, so I'm going to tie this to money, but I'm going to do it in a very I'm going to come from the back, okay? I think that the reason, 2 years ago now, maybe, two and a half years ago is when I had my, nothing's real, money's fake moment, right? Okay. Do you know Brad Gibb?
I know.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So he's like one of my best friends. He'll be at Inner Circle or at FHL, and I was at his house, and he's in Salt Lake City. He's got like a 12,000 square foot house, and he's trying to explain to me that money isn't real, right? And then I have that moment, and from that moment on, it was like, oh, it's all fake, right? And it's all made up and cool. So what now? And so I went down the rabbit hole of studying that, and I came to the conclusion that the reason that the government can be so corrupt and the reason that the system is even able to be where it is at today, and as the government being so insane, is because it's all like a fiat money system where they just print. Okay. I'm not sure if you noticed this, but I'm
hard assets.
I'm not even like a fan. Like I own zero assets except for that, right? Like I'm all in 100%. Like I outside of 2 real estate rentals that we still own, but as soon as I can sell them, like it's going into that. Like I'm all in because I believe that's I'm extreme, right? Yeah. But I want to know like with this fake money system, is this a system that like eventually is going to go away? Is it something that we should play in? Like, what's your view on this unlimited debt bubble that we are in per se, and how does that affect entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it's referred to as new economic theory, and it's completely ridiculous. Again, if you go back to the fundamentals of how economies work and you just understand those core principles, supply and demand, if you input into a closed system more of something, that automatically is going to impact the economy that occurs within that closed system.
Yep.
So let's talk about money as a concept, right? So money has had an evolution over the millennia, if you will, right? We had commoditized money, which would gold, silver, things of that nature. Even before then, you had barter, right? Which was the exchange of a thing that was of perceived value to the person exchanging it. Then we went to commoditized money with gold and silver. Then we moved to fiat. Now, fiat is essentially government-backed currencies that have no intrinsic value, right?
Yep.
So, well, maybe you could pile a bunch of cash and burn it for heat.
Yeah.
But that's about it. There's not an intrinsic value that's associated with it. Whereas gold, there is intrinsic value because it could be used in industrial means. It could be put into computer equipment and automobiles. It had, and even has some utility as like drapery for like jewelry environments, and things of that nature. It could be. It could be. But the challenge we have is societies that have migrated away from a hard currency, something that is physically limited in supply, at least to some degree, because gold technically is not limited in supply, because if we wanted to, we could figure out how to shoot rocket ships into space and go collect it from the asteroids that are floating around out there. So it's not technically limited. It's limited just because of proximity and physical means of getting access to it.
Have you ever seen the meme on Instagram or they float around the internet that's like, Uganda just discovered $11 trillion worth of gold, and it's like the bald eagle going over, we're coming to install democracy.
Yeah, exactly. The government has interesting ways of doing what it does in order to control its interests. But that evolution away from that hard currency creates major challenges in a system. And then when you push the control of that system outside of public purview, that's the problem, right? Because think about it, like our monetary system here in the United States is not really open to public inspection. Yeah. It's controlled by the Federal Reserve Bank, and that's an oxymoron if I ever heard one, right? Because it's the Federal Reserve Bank is not federal. It's not owned by the government. It's a quasi-government agency. It's not a reserve. There's no cash on hand, and it's not a bank. You and I can't go open an account there. But what they do is through policy, they move the economy in a direction that they choose. The problem with it is the movements are always leading, meaning the economy takes a while to catch up. So if they want to limit certain actions, they do a thing, and it takes a while for the economy to catch up, which means most of the time they overshoot their mark. So when you're looking at monetary policy, it creates an environment where the whole system has to catch up to everything else that they're doing. Now, new economic theory is not really new. It's been around for a while, but it's just fundamentally flawed because it says that there is nothing wrong with printing more dollars, right? That it's perfectly okay. And when you look at the system that is our tax regime, like think about it. Like if we here in the United States, our tax roll, if you will, we collect about somewhere between $2 to $4 trillion in taxes each year. We spend about $6 trillion, right? Think about that. We collect 2 to 4, we spend about 6. Which means we are always in a position where we're spending more than we're collecting. And since the government doesn't actually make money, it just prints money. But it's not really doing it. What's happening is the Federal Reserve is engaged with the Treasury to create more monetary supply, like M2 environment. So when you look at money supply over the course of just the past few years, it has been off the charts.
Insanity.
Off the charts.
Insanity. Yep.
Of all the money that has ever been printed and put into circulation in the history of the United States, nearly 70% was created in the past 4 years.
70%.
70%. So if you think about that, that means there's more money that came into our system. Remember we were talking about supply demand earlier? So more money was dumped into a closed system. Now, I'd argue that during the post-COVID era, the actual system actually declined with regard to productivity, less goods and services. But let's assume that it was the same amount of goods and services. You put more money into a system with the same goods and services. What happens to the cost of those goods and services?
Everything goes up.
Everything goes up because people have more money to spend for those same limited supply of goods and services. That inflationary demand by itself is a challenge. But here's the thing, what I really get frustrated with. The concept of inflation is a taxation, right? Because it's the erosion of your purchasing power, right? It's literally the theft of your ability to use your money the way you choose, right? That is a planned system. The Federal Reserve has a target for inflation, meaning they are trying to create inflation, at least to a certain degree. Now, for the longest time, it's been 2%. Now it's fluctuating between 2 to 3, but it's still a target to steal your money out of your wallet. Think about that. The government, through this quasi-governmental agency, is saying it's perfectly okay for us to try to take money from you without you noticing it.
It's crazy.
Now, the problem is people are noticing. Why? Because have you been to the grocery store lately? Like the cost of eggs and meat and the stuff that people actually need to live life is getting ridiculously high. And what happens though is, again, there's a lot of people who are pretty smart at making things look one way when they're actually another. You go into the grocery store now, sometimes you'll see some of the prices coming down, but it's not really that. What's happening is that the contents in the box are getting smaller. Right. So in reality, you're actually paying more for a lower amount of stuff that you're buying. It's just an entire rigged system. But when you sit back, the only way to fix it is just to become educated. Right. You have to learn what's happening. You have to understand what money is and how to use it. Because if you sit back and try to rely on the traditional education system to learn about money, I mean, I'm proof of it. Like I didn't learn anything about money when I was in school, at least nothing that was true. Like if the government education environment really cared about people, they would mandate that you learn how to pay your taxes. Like they would mandate it. It would be, of course, how to file your own taxes. Like think about that because everyone needs to do it.
Everyone needs to do it, right?
They would mandate how to go out and actually buy a house. They would mandate how to build a business, how to buy a business, how to create financial independence. They're not interested in your financial independence. In fact, they want the exact opposite because if you are not independent, that means you are dependent on them. And that's what I get very, very frustrated with. And I try to break away from that system, luckily early enough for me where I actually achieved it. And now what I do is teach other people how to do it.
Okay, so
that's a long-winded
No.
response
This is really
question.
good. This is really good. So I think I have one more question before we pivot into more of like the more tactical things that you teach. But so how much longer do you think this can last? Because I think that I'm 30, right? And I look at my daughter who's 9 months old, right? And I go, okay, we're spending $1 trillion of new debt every 100 days, right? So, in whatever a decade, we'll be over $100 trillion in debt and all that. And I go, it's if every dollar in existence has interest due on it. So there's more interest owed than there are dollars in existence. And I'm like, this eventually, this ends somehow, right? Like or
sort of.
So what, how long can it go?
So one of the things I think happens on social media is a lot of people focus on the near term versus the long term and the near in geography versus the long in geography. So let me explain what I mean by that. Think about what we were talking about, the inflation of the dollar. And what we talked about in the context here is the impact it's having on Americans, right? The ability to go to the grocery store and everything's more expensive, et cetera, et cetera. That's bad, but it's planned that way because the government would actually like it to be bad for us because they know it's way worse for people outside of the United States. If you look at all the currency that is in circulation, the vast majority of it's actually outside of the United States.
That's crazy.
So the concept of inflation is a product to reduce the actual cost that the government has for all the debt that it's creating. Like someone buys a 30-year bond right now. 30 years from now, the dollars that are being used to pay that back are worth way, 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 way less than they are today. So the government doesn't really care,
right?
At least in my opinion, doesn't care much about the actual inflationary pressures because they'll figure out a way to make it manageable here in the United States.
Yeah, but
they
typically do every single
fiat
things. Currency in ever in existence has failed, right?
And pretty much everyone.
So
I mean, again, we're still in progress here,
right?
But a lot of fiat currencies, well, not a lot. Historically speaking, fiat currencies collapsed because of the process of inflation.
And you get hyperinflation, right? Extreme.
It can lead to that. It doesn't always lead to it, but it can lead to that.
So what, like in your view, when I think 30 or 40 years into the future, right? Like I go, will the US dollar still exist? Probably. And maybe, I don't know, but I know that I go, there's going to be some shifts. There's going to be some changes, and things are, we're very uneasy right now. The reason I like Bitcoin, right, is because I go, well, it's fixed, it's hard, and it's mine. Right?
Yeah,
and
I get it.
And so I go, what is, like, shifting the conversation back to the entrepreneur here for a second, I think that in the short to mid-term, understanding and playing in this game, insanely important, as you're talking about. And I go, okay, is there a point where you opt out? Or is there a point where the game breaks? Or how do you prepare for that? Or is it just like, we don't know, so just do everything we can here now?
I'm actually a believer in the concept of two forces competing against each other to create neutrality. So there's an inflationary force, right? And that's the monetary policy that's being initiated, et cetera, which is causing that inflationary pressure to the upside. But there's also this amazing ingenuity that Americans have. Americans have this ability to create new, and which is one of the most beautiful things. Like I hate the government. I love America.
Yeah, same, 100%. Right? Yep.
And when you sit back and you look at all of the possibilities for ingenuity to create new and better ways to accomplish things at lower and lower cost, that creates deflationary pressure. So with advancements in technology, you have monetary policy, which is pushing inflation up. You have advancements in technology, which is actually creating deflationary pressures. I'm hopeful that it brings us to a state of neutrality so that we don't get to that true hyperinflation environment, because yes, it's going to cost more and more for a house over the course of the next decade. But if they invent a way to build a house at much lower cost,
AI robots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
You're essentially saying, well, maybe it's not going to cost a lot for a house anymore. Or maybe they come up with a new advancement with regard to transportation or food manufacturing or just health and nutrition, right? All of those things create potential deflationary pressures that are combating the inflationary monetary policy that our government has seemed to fall in love with.
Okay. What do you think of Bitcoin?
I think Bitcoin is definitely something that should be considered by many, not by most, right? And the reason for that is I don't think enough people are academically in a position to understand what Bitcoin is. Because the very first thing you need to do is you need to discard the disbeliefs that you have about what money is. Yeah. Again, the concept of Bitcoin is, I think, more of a storage of value type of concept. I'm still struggling with the utility of it, but the storage of value makes a lot of sense because it took work to create a Bitcoin, right? So there's effort and energy that goes into it. That is a limited supply. It's only going to be a certain amount that will ever exist throughout the history of the world from here to forever, right? So you can't go out into an asteroid and find more Bitcoin, right?
Right.
But the concept is that limited supply is like many other things of limited supply. The concept of value requires the other person to perceive the value, right? So while you and I may have differing opinions of it, the reality is it's perception of value that creates the value.
For sure.
So until enough people can understand it, which again, most do not, many will, but most do not, that creates a limit on its true potential of value. I have it in my own portfolio though, full disclosure.
Do you, would you agree or disagree with the argument of intrinsic value of, since the beginning of time, like since humans have been around, we've always wanted to transfer value or store it throughout time and space?
Well,
right.
Yeah, the concept of storage of value has been critical throughout the history.
Right. And so the concept of being able to transport $1 billion across the world, in a hash, right? In 8 minutes or less, right? For pennies, right?
But think about what that does to the actual current systems of power, right? The current systems of power don't want that. Right. So that from a policy standpoint is constantly being brought into the battle. Yeah. Now, if enough individuals, which I think the momentum is there, enough individuals say, I don't care what's happening over here, I'm still going to do over here. Yeah. That is of interest, right? That's something that you should not be silent on. You shouldn't be blind to. That's something you should be paying attention to.
All right. We'll have to have you back on for a Bitcoin podcast because I want to dive deep with you. Because that is like the one thing that I've like that's my nerd out. Like that's the thing I've studied. But I want to shift gears to a little bit more tactical stuff.
Sure.
For the entrepreneur. I believe as entrepreneurs, well, let me back up. For most of my entrepreneurship career, I focused on tactics and hacks, right? And it was like, how do I get rich? Yeah, right. And it was build, right, all that. And the wise man built his house upon the rock, right? And so I was like, all right, what's the rock? And so I started studying principles, right? And specifically frameworks and lenses to kind of think through things. Because it was fascinating to me how I would watch people that like they could just take anything and just turn it to gold, right? And I'm like, how? Like this. I'm like, okay, they must be thinking about things. They must have frames differently than I do, right? And so you have a tremendous amount of knowledge, right? And you've studied these things and you know these things. Do you have a core lens or framework or like way of thinking about things that you use when thinking specifically about the legalities of entity structures and things for entrepreneurs, the main things that you do? How do you think about those things, or what's the underlying principles or framework that you use to think about these things?
One, I'm an academic when it comes to the concepts of law, right? So I'm a lawyer, right? I know how the law works and how it operates. Now, the law tends to follow logic and reason, but is not always logical or reasonable, right? It just is what it is. So
okay, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. But when you look at when you look at business, the vast majority of businesses have no structure at all, right? There's about 33 million small businesses in the United States right now, measured by 25 million of annual revenue or less. In that category, the vast majority of them have no legal structure. They are sole proprietors or general partners. What does it mean to have no legal structure? It just means that the individual is doing business as themselves. They can have a DBA, a doing business as name, but they're doing business as themselves, right? Which means they are now personally liable for anything their business is doing, and vice versa. Their business is liable for anything they personally do, because liability is a two-way street when you're talking to a business individual, right? So I hesitate to say business owner because, again, most business owners aren't really business owners. They're
I said an LLC, though.
Yeah, having an LLC is a nice piece of paper, but it does little to protect you from swords and whips and bullets and everything else that comes at you. The reality is understanding what legal structure is the first step. Legal structure is simply putting and utilizing a statutory entity into place. What does that mean? Well, it means each state has rules and laws on the books with regard to how businesses can operate and what happens within that particular business and what the liabilities of the business are and how those liabilities potentially extend to other people. So an LLC, as an example, a limited liability company, is a creature of statute. It's a statutory entity. And when a business owner sets up an LLC, that is simply a legal structure that they're putting around their business. But that by itself is not enough. And that's where most individuals who start down this track stop. Oh, I got my LLC and I'm good. The problem is all it is a piece of paper. In order to actually have protections, you actually have to do all of the other stuff that the statutes require. Not just the statutes, also court cases, right? So in law, there's two ways law becomes into being, right? You have law that's created through actual legislation, and you have law that's created sort of from the bench. Like what does a judge say about the laws that exist or don't exist? And that's referred to as common law. Both of those things impact business ownership here in the United States. Now, outside the U.S., different jurisdictions have different things that go on. But here in the U.S.
There's something outside the U.S.?
Yeah, exactly. Every now and again. Every now and again. But when you're trying to set up yourself for building a business, most individuals will do it without any structure, right? The very first thing you should consider doing is figuring out what type of business you want to create. Everyone's talking about, like, go open an LLC. Well, no, like, you want to have a business first. Like, what's your business concept? Do you have an addressable market that you can go out and serve? Do you have an actual ability to serve that market, whether that's through a service or a product? Like, do all the stuff that leads to you having a business first. And then once you have that in place, then build it, right? Build the structure, the infrastructure, and protect it along the way, right? Because I've never met a business owner that wants to have to get wealthy twice, right?
Sucks.
And if you don't put all those protections in place, then you'll be in that circumstance where you have to try again and again. That doesn't mean every business is going to be a success, but you want to make sure that you're safeguarding it just in case.
So your lens is like, it sounds like an underlying principle. I like to say, I like to keep things pretty dumb because I'm pretty dumb, right? So the underlying thing here is if we want protection of things, we have to be separate from the business.
That's at its core, yes. So I teach something called the real wealth matrix, which is the ideal hierarchy of ownership pretty much over everything in your life. And I use different layers of entities to accomplish it. At the top of the hierarchy of ownership is something referred to as a trust. Yep. A trust is a legal entity. It's a private entity, private document, doesn't get published to the public record anywhere. But the trust becomes an alter ego for you. And the beautiful thing about a trust is since it is a private entity, you can call it anything you want. You can call it microphone in front of face trust, so that anything that trust owns now, microphone in front of face trust owns it, not Edward Collins. So it creates this true separation from the public purview as to who owns what, right? Then those trusts own holding companies. Holding companies are business entities that are being used for the sole purpose of owning other companies. They don't engage in commerce, so they don't go out into the marketplace. Therefore, they're not liable to get litigated against, right? They're going to get sued at a holding company level because it's not engaging with the people. Those holding companies then own operating companies. Operating companies are those businesses that engage in commerce. They're buying and or selling goods and or services with the public. That's where you can get sued. But that operating company is a limited liability company that is actually following the rules of being a limited liability company. It is a single member limited liability company whose only owner is the holding company above it. As a single member LLC, it is a disregarded entity for tax purposes, which means that operating company does not file its own tax return. All of its income and expenses flow up to the holding company, and the holding company is what files the tax return. Why do you want to do that? Well, now I am not being paid in my business. I'm getting paid by my holding company as essentially an investor in the business enterprise. So I'm not engaging in that standard tax game that most people get engaged with regard to losing most of their dollars to Uncle Sam. Yeah,
which is just so insane. Before we go any further, where can people learn more about this? Like, what do you got? What do you have?
We teach a lot of things. First and foremost, obviously, social media. Like, I'm trying to give as much as I possibly can for free out to the community because I just want everyone to level up their financial literacy. And if they're interested in diving deeper, we encourage people to jump into our private community. So we have a private community for entrepreneurs where I challenge business owners to become up-level entrepreneurs, which means they have their financial house, their businesses dialed in. They know how to run them. They know how to run their money and to run the business. And they learn how to keep more of every dollar that they make.
Okay. So I want to break this into two different categories here for a second. Okay. Specifically around the trust. Okay. There are, let's call them newer entrepreneurs or younger entrepreneurs. And then there are, let's say, more advanced entrepreneurs, right? And I would assume that probably has to do primarily with revenue.
Sometimes. I mean, you could be a new entrepreneur and be knocking it out of the park with revenue.
Meaning though, like, right. So I would say a newer entrepreneur, if you're at, whatever the number is, that's when you need to get more advanced setups and things.
So I'm a firm believer that everyone should have a trust. Every single person.
Really?
So whether you're just getting started, have no business at all, maybe you're just a W-2 employee, or you have a business that's earning $1 billion a year, everyone should have a trust layer in their overall plan. And the reason for that is a trust helps remove you from the apparatus that is government. What do I mean by that? Well, God forbid something happens to you when you pass away. That process of passing away puts you, if you don't have a trust in place, it puts you into the purview of government. There's this thing called probate. Probate is the process by which all your stuff goes to those you care about after your passing. And that process costs money. On average, anywhere from 2%, the highest I've seen is about 8% of the wealth that passes through probate gets consumed by fees and expenses.
Craziness.
Right? That is 100% avoidable. 100%. All you need to do is have a trust, because a trust is a private entity. It does not get submitted for probate, doesn't go through the probate process. And at your passing, it still owns all your stuff. So no one else there's no transaction that's occurred. So the government can't just step in and take it, right? That process safeguards your resources for those you love and care about. So whether you were just getting started or you've been in business for decades, the trust is your layer of saving thousands, if not tens or hundreds or millions of dollars in costs, depending on the size of your overall net worth, that would otherwise pass through probate. So everyone should have a trust. But there are different types of trusts, right?
Yeah.
In the US, there are about 77 different trusts.
Wow.
Yeah. They all fall into two general categories, though. You have revocable and irrevocable. And I teach this stuff inside of our community. I go way into depth because it's
Where do the people go? Now I want to sign up. Where's the link?
it's pretty simple. It's theuplevelcommunity.com.
Theuplevelcommunity.com. Okay. So then give me the base level, because trusts are something. I recently did a podcast with a guy who uses trusts for when people sell real estate, so they don't have to.
Yeah, typically you're going to use a land trust in order to like maybe do a subject to deal or something of that nature. There's lots of ways to safeguard and keep your name off of public record.
Well,
and also not trigger due on sale
pay, or that you can avoid if you just roll a real estate deal into another real estate deal.
That's a 1031 exchange.
Yeah, so he's like basically you can sell your asset and then transfer it into a non-real estate asset without the 1031.
No, that's not how it works. So there's this rule in the tax law called the like-kind exchange.
Yeah.
And that's what the 1031 exchange is all about. But in 2018, the law changed so that it's only applicable to real estate now. It doesn't apply to anything else.
Yeah. But that's where I learned about trust from him, right? And I was like, oh, because I understood the concept of the LLC and the holding company, and like I nerded out on that for a while, and then like switched people that I was using, and like literally for like 3 months, I'm just like, how do I get this set up right? And then I got it, and then it's like trust. I'm like, there's another thing here, dang it, right? So at a base level, like I want you to keep it super dumb and super simple, right? Like, because I'm dumb, right? So keep it simple here for a second. What is the minimum you think that all entrepreneurs should have in place? If I am like, I'll speak to my audience. We're primarily online, right? So a lot of services, info, things of that nature. What is the minimum legal entity structure things that you should have in place to be safe?
I refer to it as a vertical.
Okay.
A revocable trust at the top of the hierarchy of ownership, which owns a Wyoming LLC as a holding company, because Wyoming is a very, very asset protection friendly state.
Okay.
And that Wyoming holding company would own a local LLC in the state of operations. So typically that's where you're going to be living, right? So if you live in Florida, it should be a Florida LLC. If you live in Arkansas, an Arkansas LLC. If you live in Colorado, a Colorado LLC.
Yep. Okay.
But the Wyoming LLC is your holding company. It's the hub, if you will. Beauty about Wyoming is we get to benefit from that layering in two ways. Like when you think about liability protections, there's two forms of liability protection. Most people only focus on the one form, which is the force field approach. That's what I call it. That's the limited liability company itself, right? When you create a limited liability company, you're essentially putting this force field around your business. The problem with it is a one-way force field. In that if something bad happens in your business, the force field prevents the plaintiff, that would be the person who's harmed, from reaching through your business to get to your personal stuff, right? That's the concept of that force field. It just keeps everything inside of the business.
Okay.
But the problem is you are a human. You live your life outside of your business a lot, right? And you could potentially cause harm to someone. What I also like to help business owners understand is that when you use this type of layering structure, you also have the ability to create the second form of liability, which is the cloak of invisibility. Prevent someone from even knowing you own the asset, right?
You a Harry Potter fan?
I love all fantasies. Force fields and cloaks of invisibility.
Yeah.
The concept here, though, is if no one knows what you own, you are less of a target. That doesn't mean you won't get sued, right? We live in America. Anyone can sue anyone for anything, right? But the reality is an attorney who is sitting next to that plaintiff is going to ask that plaintiff a lot of questions. They're going to say, who is it that you think harmed you? That attorney is going to go into their system. They're going to plug that person's name in. And if nothing shows up, and again, a lot of attorneys are going to be upset with me for saying that, but they're going to turn to the plaintiff and likely say, Mr. and Mrs. Plaintiff, you don't seem to have a cause of action here. That's attorney speak for, I don't want to take the case because I'm not going to get paid, right? Now, recognize there are a lot of good attorneys out there who are not going to do that. For sure. But at the end of the day, if you don't show up on the screen, that means, well, now that attorney is going to question, can we get paid?
Yeah.
Not just the attorney, but also the client. Or they're going to be able to get restitution for whatever the aggrieved harm is, right? That process of invisibility is fundamental to what I teach, right? Yeah. I want you to be off the radar. I want you to not have anything in your own name. It's the old adage, like, own nothing, control everything.
Yeah.
But it actually works, right? Like if you set it up the right way so that the have-nots that are out there, right? There are three forces that want your stuff: creditors, litigants, and dear old Uncle Sam. If they don't see what you have, it's harder for them to go after it. Now, obviously, Uncle Sam has way stronger arms to reach into whatever it is.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you do things the right way, you can legitimately, legally, true black and white stuff, keep more of every dollar you make. Because everything is, this is also something I learned. This is a while ago now, probably about 14, 15 years ago. There's an amazing thing. The government has to follow the law, right? Now, recognize they stretch it and push it a lot, but they have
everybody but the intelligence agency.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. Well, even they do, but unfortunately, that law is not published to everyone. But here's the thing: like the IRS has to follow the rules, and if you know the rules of the game, you could start playing to win. The problem is most people have no clue what the rules are. They don't even know what the game is, and the wealthy have pretty much had a monopoly over the rules themselves, right? And they're out there playing chess while everyone else is playing Twister. They're both boards, right?
Yeah.
But very, very different games,
Yeah.
which is why the outcomes are very, very different in most regards. And since the rules are not taught in school, you're left with trying to learn it. And the only other place that it happens, that's typically around the kitchen table. But the problem is most of our parents aren't financially literate.
Yeah, and it's frustrating that too. And I think that was, I have my mom on the podcast. I don't know if I know Jose said he saw that one, and I love my parents to death. And one of the things that I think I had an advantage of growing up is I really didn't care too much what people thought of me. Right?
Okay.
I'm just like, I mean, I did insecurities, but I'm like, I'm gonna do my thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's difficult because it's like the parents, the people you grew up with around you, they genuinely want what's best for you, right? 100%. And it just happens that the world that we live in now is not like if you don't know the rules, you don't know the rules, right? And you can care deeply about someone and be wrong, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah. So one other just quick question there before we move on to the next topic with that, which would be, if let's say we don't have it set up that way, it's like I don't have a Wyoming, holdings company or the holdings company, or I have something set up incorrectly. Do you set up a new one and then just shift, or do you just transfer these over, or is there all sorts of technicalities there?
It depends.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'd love to be able to give you a rule
no,
of
I get it.
thumb,
No,
but
100%.
it really depends because certain businesses that have been a going concern for a while, there may be a lot of friction with making a change. Yeah. Like maybe you have certain contracts that are in place that would be really hard to get, or maybe you have certain licensure that's been again. So there's a lot of nuance to it. So it's not a hard and fast yes, no answer. It depends on your circumstances. But what I like to say is if you have too much friction to burn one thing down to build a new, you simply keep that as a separate vertical from everything else that you do and figure out ways to defund that environment. So as an example, let's say you have an internet company that on one product line you sell over here and you keep that under this business, and you create a whole nother business that is truly anonymous in the right structure. And then you also have this separate business fulfill for this business so that you could send the money over here. Right.
Okay.
So you could channel resources legitimately, right? It has to be for actual services or products and goods rendered.
Yeah.
It can't be fictitious. But if you do things legitimately, you can actually figure out how to keep what you currently have separate from everything else that you're building that's anonymous.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point there. Obviously, Grant Cardone, and wide variety of opinions on him. But one of the things I learned from him back in the day is he goes, people don't understand like the fact that like if you just follow the rules, like they can't touch you. And he's like, but you have to follow the rules,
Correct.
right? And he's like, so like when I say I had a home office, he's like, I literally had a sign on my door that said office, right? And so, I tell my accountant all the time, I said, I want to pay as little taxes as possible, but if there's a remotely a gray area, err on the side of paying more. I don't care, right? Like I don't want to break the law, but it's like, but I know the rules, right? Like, and I have taken the time to go, well, I know the rules I know.
Enough.
I know the rules that I know, right? And it's like, with renting, this is the office and it's downstairs and this is very clearly the office, right? Yeah. And it's like this much. And so all the little things, and it's like so annoying, right? But even when we go on vacation, certain places or wherever we go, and I'm like, babe, I have to work for this many hours. There has to be legitimate work and it's a record of it. Cause I'm like, I hate paying taxes. I hate it. I think they're so stupid, but I'm like, I pay it. And if someone were to come out at me, I'd be like, here you go, right? Like every single one of them. So, okay. So anyway, moving into kind of that next piece of it here, at what point do you go from I'm a beginner to like, okay, there's a new level of things? Like what is that next level? When should somebody go from, okay, I've got the right structures in place and I've got my accountant and I've got I'm doing enough now to where I've really got to play the game now?
Yeah. So let me tell you what you should do, at least consider, and what tends to happen, right? Because those are usually two different things. Okay. You should do this as early as you possibly can.
Okay.
Right. Now I'm doing my best, and obviously I've already failed. I'm trying not to shit all over people. I don't like doing that because it's not my right to say what you should do. Yeah. What I could say is what I've done. Yeah. And I could say what other people have done successfully. Yeah. Right. As early as possible, get the right structure in place because it's way better than trying to fix it later on.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Now that doesn't mean it's not fixable. It just may cost you a lot more time, effort, energy, and treasure to get it fixed. What tends to happen is most people react to circumstances, right? That reaction could be a negative thing that happened to them or someone they know. Maybe someone got sued or threatened lawsuit. Like maybe you have employees and there was a threat of sexual harassment or whatever it may be. Maybe someone you know got into an automobile accident or their child got into an automobile accident. And now they're wondering, are they going to be liable for that activity? Because a lot of people don't recognize that if you have a minor child, meaning under the age of 18, and they're in an auto accident, you as a parent in most states are financially liable for that activity. But the concept here is something typically triggers the desire to see, am I doing it the right way? Right. And even that phrase, the right way, is misleading because there are so many different ways to do it. Like I teach the Real Wealth Matrix because to me, it is the ideal hierarchy of ownership. And it has been tested in the trenches for 27 years, right? So it works. I know it works. It works for me, works for thousands of other business owners all across the country in all different industries. But is it the only way? No. There are plenty of other people who have designed similar structures or even dissimilar structures that work well. It's just whatever you're going to do, you have to do it, right? The problem is most people will get started and not finish. Like the number one thing, and this is now speaking as a lawyer, the number one problem with trusts is most people never fund them. So you go and you pay an attorney to draft a document and it's just a piece of paper. You never transfer the assets. You never retitle deeds. You never go through the process of changing your bank accounts over so the trust now owns the bank account instead of you. So you just spent a lot of money and you never did something with it. It's like going out and buying an amazing, espresso machine and never having any coffee grounds in it, right? Like I'm not a big espresso guy. I don't even know why I came up with that analogy. But the concept is there, right? Yeah. If you're going out to build it, you actually have to practice it as well. You have to put it into existence. Yeah. And the concept of the trigger could be something that happens to you that's just generally unpleasant. Like think about your own circumstance. Have you ever been in a situation where you get to the end of the year and you realize the amount of money you have to pay in taxes?
Yeah, it kind of sucks.
Yeah, right?
I'm going to buy a Cybertruck this year. I'm going to write the whole thing off.
The whole concept of taxation is theft to me, right? Taxation is theft. The concept of the government coming in and taking half of what you've worked hard to build is ridiculous, right?
That's so frustrating.
And even then, I was talking about this just the other day, the concept of capital gains, right? You go, you invest money into something and you made a good decision and it went up in value and you sell it and they're going to tax that, right? It's that capital gains tax. But the interesting thing is they're very, very happy, meaning the government's very, very happy to participate with you on the upside.
Yep.
But what about the downside?
Yeah. Why don't
they
get a
lose money? They're not going to come in and give you half of that money.
Yeah.
Right? They don't do that. They don't participate on the downside. But the concept of taxation is one that usually triggers a lot of business owners, especially when you start making a lot of money and you start seeing the dollars that are actually going to the government. You're like, is this real?
Yeah.
Like I can remember that happened. That's one of the things that triggered me earlier on. Cause I didn't come from money. So my target in life was that amazing 7-figure mark. Like I was like, I want to be a 7-figure business owner. I just wanted it with all my being.
Yep.
And when I finally hit it, I can remember I was in my accountant's office. This is before I built our own practice out. Yeah. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at him and he says, Edward, you did amazing this year. And I'm like, I'm feeling all good because I knew I hit my mark. I was like, yes. And then he shared with me the piece of paper that told me the dollar check that I had to write because I had not withheld throughout the year.
Yeah.
$352,000.
That's so insane, dude.
I'm like, I went from a 7-figure earner back down to 6 figures like that. Yeah. And I'm like, that totally deflated me. And I said, that can't be right. Yeah. And I said, did you just say that out loud? And he's looking at me. I'm like, why wouldn't you tell me ahead of time? And that's the problem that most entrepreneurs deal with.
Yeah.
They look at these outside professionals as the professional that's actually doing X. When they're not doing X, they're doing Y. Like, as an example, most accountants are little more than glorified historians. They spend all of their time, their effort, and their energy just trying to figure out how to best tell the IRS what already happened, right? They're talking about last year, not what to do today to reduce your taxes. Last year's already done. You can't go back in time and change things. You already did it. So the concept of tax reduction needs to be a proactive process.
Well, and I think for most people, I know for me for a long time, like I have benefited greatly from mentors and coaches. It's one thing that I was fortunate enough to learn early on. And I've spent $450,000 of my own dollars on coaches and mentors, right?
Money well spent.
Like and 100% it has, right? And every time, we'll make a little extra, my wife will be like, better vacation. I'm like, oh no, I bought another coach. What are you talking about? Right? But
that makes it possible for the next vacation to be awesome.
And the next one, right? But I remember I would just sit there in my little apartment and I would hear all these things, right? And it's like, this or this. And I'm like, I don't even, I want to go hire someone. I want to go do the right thing, but I literally don't even know what to ask. I don't know what to look for. I don't know what is right or wrong. I don't know how to determine how to make a decision on it. And the thing that just kept going in my head is, this is expensive, this is expensive, this is expensive, this is expensive, right? And
it is when you don't get something for it.
And I'm like, but how do you know? And so I think that's where I think a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves, even at that 7-figure or multi-7-figure level, right? And my tax bill, still annoyingly high, but it's pretty low, all things considered, right? Compared to what it used to be. But I go, that took a lot of time and a lot of mentors to get there. So how does somebody make that, where's the starting point for that piece of yes, go to your community, right? But what is that? Where does somebody start with that?
A single word. There's one single word you can add to any question you're about to ask a financial professional. If you simply add the word how to the beginning of that question, it changes the entire game. Because now, how can I deduct my home office? That's a totally different question. And now you're enlisting that financial professional to be on your team, to brainstorm with you. See, the problem is most relationships in that regard are transactional in nature, not collaborative. You want a collaborative relationship with the people who are helping direct your wealth, right? Whether you're talking about a financial advisor, a tax, or a lawyer, it doesn't matter. You want someone to collaborate with you, brainstorm to figure it out. But most of those financial professionals are not strategists. They're tacticians. They're individuals, especially on the tax side, they're compliance experts. What number goes into what box on what form so the IRS doesn't get mad, right? That's what they do. And again, I'm not discounting it because you need to do that. You need to do that. You need to file your taxes. But the challenge is, again, I've never met a business owner that is happy to pay taxes. Doesn't mean they're not willing to pay taxes. And it doesn't mean that they wouldn't be even happier if they knew what their tax dollars were going toward. But the concept is they've worked hard to create that. And they're giving it away, but for knowing how not to.
Yeah. And do you think it's a true statement? At first I was like, no, this is not it. But the more I am an entrepreneur, I'm like, the average person that just works a 9-to-5 job, and I'm not downplaying the 9-to-5 job in any way, shape, or form, right? We need it. But they have no concept of how hard it is to actually run a business and turn a profit and actually create real economic value in the world. And to me, when I hear people are like, oh, the wealthy should pay their fair share of taxes, I'm like, you don't have any concept of what you're talking about. And do you think that's a true statement?
I think perspective is always individual. A goldfish has no idea how hard it is to be an oak tree.
That's fair.
Right? It is what it is. Each thing is different. Not everyone is built to be an entrepreneur. They're just not.
Man. Right? And I used to think they were. I was like, everybody can be an entrepreneur. No.
But the concept, not everyone's built to be an employee either. I'm not. I'm just not built that way.
Oh my God.
Right. But that doesn't mean we can't have a relationship that is symbiotic, right? As a business owner, employees in many regards are critically important to your business. So having that symbiosis is important. When you look at trying to get to the next level of whatever it is that you're doing, figuring out how to collaborate to get to that outcome is critically important. So whether it's with your employees to help them understand what your vision is, whether it's with the professionals that are helping to guide you, you want to work together. The problem is most don't do that. Most are transactional or one-sided. You typically go to the accountant, you get the tax returns done. Again, that's a yesterday job, not a tomorrow job. Yep. You go to the lawyer, you draft the trust, but you didn't fund it, right? You go to the financial advisor and you just hope that they're putting your dollars in the right investments, right? It's not a collaboration. Most individuals that have hit major milestones of success, those tend to be individuals who understand and recognize the benefit of collaboration. They're not true tacticians and practitioners across everything in their life, but many of them at least have that type of discussion and also entrust the right people to do the right things. And I know it can be hard to figure that out too, right? Like figuring out who to work with as an example. Well, one of the ways you could do that is start asking different types of questions in that quote unquote interview phase. Like ask questions like, what have you done for someone in my circumstance that most others don't do in your industry? And just ask them to explain. What have you learned this year, in whatever your industry is, whether it's tax, financial advisory, law, what have you learned this year that has made it possible for you to do bigger and better things for those you serve? Ask them to tell you. Like, how do you learn this stuff? Like, what do you do?
How big is your team?
Which company?
Current company for the Upleveled stuff.
We have 9 employees on site or in the US, and then we have international staff as well for our online community. And our online community gets supported by our done for you communities as well. Like our
across all your how many businesses do you own? Or
9.
9. Okay. How many do you think across all 9 do you think you have?
We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 140 people that are in our charge.
140. Okay. So as a business owner, what do you think? I want to talk specifically on the online business if we can for a second here. Yeah.
That's the newest one. The one I'm most excited about.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, the world is certainly trending that way, digital, online, things of that nature. That's my world, right? Like people are like, you've never worked in the real world. I'm like, you're darn right I haven't. I like my internet bubble. Thank you very much. Right. But it's becoming
very real.
It's
very real.
Right. And it's like, and I woke up one day and I was like, wow, this is not a little bubble anymore of it. I mean, it was pretty mainstream post COVID, right? It's getting bigger and bigger. So, how actually, let's start with this. What's your primary revenue source right now in the online space? Is the community, or like where do you
community and coaching?
Community and coaching, and like the coaching, what does that look like?
So we coach business owners on how to structure their businesses, how to run those businesses, and how to keep more of every dollar. So essentially, and I'm going to be talking about this actually at Russell's event.
Shout out Russell. Shout out Russell.
Russell is awesome.
Yeah.
He's taught me a lot about what's going on with regard to digital, because I did not grow up with this stuff.
Yeah.
But essentially, we have our community as a whole has one unifying promise. The unifying promise is we challenge business owners to become up-level entrepreneurs. Yep. The difference across the community is simply the level of support you get towards that outcome.
Okay.
We have pretty much DIY environment where you just get access to course material and you do it on your own. Yep. We have coaching that is limited in nature. You get assigned client success advisors and they help navigate you through the process. And then we have much more hands-on coaching, much more interaction where you get specific specialized guidance. And again, it's just different levels of support.
What's your highest level one?
$100,000.
100,000. Is that with you? One-on-one? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm so curious to know the story behind, from a business perspective, right? The story behind how you figured out you're Edward verified and ultimately blew up on social.
That's a happy accident.
Well, and that's what you said, right? Yeah. Briefly, when I asked you about it, just briefly, we met like at Funnel Live. Was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago, I think. Yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago, and then I think it might have been the one I spoke at. I don't remember, but anyway, then we met again down in Mexico. We ran into each other, and you're such a genuine, like I could just you could sense genuineness from you, and I appreciate that. And you had mentioned that, and I'm like, okay. I imagine this has completely changed your business, right? What was it going behind? Because I think so many people, as someone who has grown and managed, particularly Instagram, like 7 million all organically, right? Yeah. Like, what was the story behind that?
So, I didn't grow up with the internet, right? My very first social media post was in October of 2021.
No way. That is so crazy.
Very first.
So crazy. Which platform?
That was Instagram. And the only reason I did it is because Russell Brunson told me I had to.
Shout out Russell. Let's go, dude.
Let's go. That was the motivation. And I did it haphazard. And then at the end of 21, he basically told me I needed to do it every day. And I was like, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you have to do it every day. And I'm like, okay. And I made a commitment. I said, I will post every single day until it works.
Wow.
And I did. Starting January 1st, 2022, I posted daily for a year and 4 months, and it didn't work like at all. Like I literally posted every single day for a year and 4 months. So from January 1st, 2022, all the way through April 25th of 2023, we got no traction.
Across
videos, quote cards, the talking selfie video, like all of the above. I tried everything.
Yeah.
Didn't work. I came into the studio on October 25th, 2023, and I said, I'm done. I was done. And my team was like, no, you're not. I was like, no, you don't understand. I'm done. And then Jose, my director of implementation, he goes, no, you made a commitment. I'm like, because when I say I'm going to do something, I always do.
Yeah.
That's one of my character flaws, I think. Yeah. I don't know, character trait or whatever.
Good job, Jose. Good job.
It was 100%. Good job. And I said, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it differently. So we started looking at the things that had gotten traction. Now, by April 25th of 2023, across everything, we had less than 6,000 followers combined.
Crazy.
So we were looking back and we were looking at some of the videos that had taken off for us, and taken off was like 100 views.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even joking. Like it was 100 views. And the ones that had taken off were these videos I call reaction videos, where I was looking at someone else's content and having commentary on it. And the way we were doing that before is we were researching, we were finding the videos, we were taking a look at them, and then we were like building out like scripting, like how I would respond. And we would spend like 2 hours filming a 30-second clip. Like it was like lots of overproduction. And I'm like, these ones took off, but that's way too much work.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that anymore. Let's do something different. Just pick one of the videos because
who cares, right? Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Just pick anyone, put it on a phone, hit record. I'll hit play and you'll record me watching it for the first time. And my face started doing weird things when I'm watching it. And they're capturing it on video because I'm listening to what's being said. I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah.
And then I simply put the phone down and I just spoke. I talked to the camera without any script, just based on my own knowledge. My team like edited. They took out the ums and the ahs. That's pretty much it. They posted it. I went home. I came back the next day and the team's like buzzing. I'm like, what's going on? And they go, you don't know? And I'm like, know what?
Yeah.
We got 12,000 followers overnight.
Oh my God.
We more than doubled our entire follower count in one day. And then every day thereafter, 10,000, 7,000, like just kept going. So I'm like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And I just went all in on the reaction video. No scripting, no advanced view. Like literally they filmed me watching it for the first time. So it's truly an authentic environment. Like as you're watching it, I'm literally watching it. Right.
Yeah.
And what we noticed is that from time to time, we'd get these videos in that I would just generally agree with. And there's one video that came in that I was like, I watched the video, I put the phone down and I had nothing to say and the team's like, you have to say something. I said, no, if I would have made this video, I would have said exactly that. That was correct.
Yeah.
They go, no, you have to say something. I have no idea what to say. They go, you have to say something. I go, okay, this is legit. It's ever verified. Oh, complete accident.
That's crazy.
Complete accident. We posted it. Within like 2 days, we started seeing people on other people's content say, is this Edward verified? Hashtag Edward verified. And it just took off. Now that's a thing.
The thing. That's literally how I know you.
Truly a happy accident. Because I literally couldn't add value. Like what was said in that particular piece was just authentically correct.
I mean, like literally when I first searched you, I was like, who's that guy? He's like Edward Verified. I literally searched Edward Verified on Instagram, right? And it was like this, and it was like, we're Upleveled now or something like that, right? And I'm like, is that him? I'm like, oh yeah, this is the guy. That's so crazy. Yeah. So 0 to 3 million now, or 6,000 to 3 million. There's over 3 million across the platforms. You're on TikTok, Instagram. YouTube. YouTube's our newest channel. We launched that relatively recently with regard to our type of content now. We're a little over 100,000 followers on YouTube now. Yeah.
Again, I'm truly blessed and thankful, grateful for everything. And it's the community that makes it happen.
Yeah, for sure. How's that changed your business? Yeah, particularly, I'll just start that. How's it changed the business?
It's remarkable. It's this environment, this whole ecosystem that I've basically built up now with the help of many amazing people on our team. It's been my fastest path to 7 figures of all of my companies.
Wow.
Right. So, it took me a decade to hit my first 7 figures in business. Like, it took me 10 years. I did it in 4 months.
Wow. Well, because of the Viral.
Yeah.
Did you launch the community on the back end of the?
Yep. Yeah. So our community. So one of the things is we were struggling with figuring, like, it was amazing with regard to building out the offer, if you will, but we were still struggling with the concept of monetization.
Yep.
Because again, that's a lot of followers, and I still want to serve and deliver, but when I post a video now, we get 20,000 views in like an hour.
Yeah.
Right. So
crazy.
We get thousands of comments. It's just way too much. So we're essentially curating a lot of that inside of our private community now. So I don't spend as much time. Doesn't mean I don't spend any time, but I don't spend as much time in the general ecosystem of responding to things. I try to deliver that inside of the community as much as I possibly can. So I'm in the community daily. We have weekly events for our community members where we do different types of events. Like the first Tuesday of every month, we do what's called a Wealth Wisdom Workshop, where I teach a particular subject. The second Tuesday is a member hot seat, where I jump into a member's business and we find areas of constraint and work through them together so that the community as a whole gets to vicariously experience that. The third Tuesday is a guest expert lecture. We bring a guest expert in to teach on a subject that's complementary to what we do, that adds value to the entrepreneurs' lives. Yeah. And then the last Tuesday of every month, we spend in doing what I call an Ask Me Anything session, where you can literally ask any question. Okay. And I answer it there for the entire community to be able to benefit from it.
And then it's just ascension from there.
Once you're inside of the community, you can choose if you want coaching. So again, the promise is unified throughout the entirety of it, right? We help challenge business owners to become up-level entrepreneurs. Yep. You can either do it on your own, or you can have us help handhold you through the process, or we can do it for you. Right. And that process is just different evolutions of the value offer that we put forth.
Following a lot of Russell's stuff. I
mean, the concept is, again, from a coaching environment standpoint, coaching is its own apparatus, but it's all delivered inside of community. And then we have a variety of ways to get to community. I have something I'm referring to as the Know, Like, and Trust You funnel. This is what I'm going to be talking about at Funnel Hacking Live, with how we actually funnel individuals now into our platforms. Yeah. We have a whole process by which it happens, which, again, it was a lot of trial and error. Because, again, I didn't grow up with this stuff. So I had to learn vicariously from what other people were doing and take the things I like from here, take the things in that process of synthesis, putting it together to something that works for me. Yeah.
What's been the biggest, actually, let me pre-frame this question. When we were down in Mexico, I was talking with Jake Leslie. Okay. Jake, and he's like, dude, if you can stay alive this year, good job, right? Because he's like, mid-market's just getting crushed, right? And it's low-ticket continuity, or high-ticket, like super, super high-ticket stuff, which I found to be true. When we do high-ticket sales, primarily service providers, but anything high-ticket, that's our jam. What's been the biggest shifts in the last, 12 months, 18 months? Or so?
I actually don't ascribe to that philosophy. See, I think that all money follows value creation. So you can create value at all different levels, right? So you can have a low ticket value offer, you can have a mid ticket value offer, and you can have a high ticket value offer. And as long as you create value, and obviously value is in the perception of the recipient, right? But if you create enough value, people will come and take advantage of it. Okay. So while, yes, the economy is definitely challenged, if you solve problems for people, people will pay to have their problems solved. Okay. Right.
Yeah, so, I agree with that.
I had a conversation with a young lady, she's an adult, but younger than me. And she was talking about her desire to want to hit 7 figures as well. She's like, I want to have a 7-figure business. I said, that's excellent. The easiest way to do that is to go through the process of solving a 7-figure problem. So if you solve 7-figure problems, you will have 7 figures of income, because all money follows value creation.
Yep. Okay. Last thing, because I know we're running up against a clock here. I want to shift kind of a little bit more on you personally, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I like to get to know people, and I think that one of the things that I make a joke, I go, it's pretty hard for me to go somewhere without talking about religion or politics or something controversial. I call it the values-based conversation, right? Sure. But I want to really get to understand how people think, how they operate, and just their values as a person, how they, what drives them, makes decisions. I've been pretty intentional with the people I learn from. Russell Brunson is someone I have a tremendous amount of respect for, not only in business, but then, in his family life, he values that, family or whatever. That's, important to me as well. Are you married? You got kids? Yep. Like this?
Yeah. I'm truly blessed with an amazing woman on my side. Arena and I have been married for 13 years this month. Well, last month. We're in September now.
Yeah.
So we just celebrated our 13-month anniversary. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm the blessed one. I won out in that deal.
Yeah,
I definitely did.
That's how I feel with my wife.
I definitely won. I definitely won.
Yeah.
But I am truly blessed there. And she has given us an amazing gift as a family because we have 2 awesome kids. My son Ryan is 10. My daughter Victoria is about to turn 9, although she already acts like she's 18.
Yeah.
Just is what it is. But yeah, it's an adventure.
That's awesome. Ben, if I were to ask the question of like, what drives you specifically? What drives your decision-making process? And maybe drives isn't the right word here. What is your decision-making process? Your moral compass or values decision? Like, what is that based in? Is it a religion? Is it a philosophical? Is it driven?
I think it's a synthesis of things. I'm generally religious. I'm Catholic, right? I grew up in that ecosystem, and I've learned to cherish and value what God means and what God's role in everything, and our role in God's ecosystem. But I'm also a Stoic, right? I believe heavily in the fact that there's most things in life are outside of your control.
Yep.
So all energy aimed at those things are wasted energies. So I'd rather put as much energy as I possibly can into the things I can control. Like I can't control whether or not it's going to rain, but I can choose to take an umbrella with me, right? Those types of things. So I really don't put a lot of effort and energy in stuff that has no impact, or I have no impact on the outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
Looking ahead into the future, what's the future look like for you over the next 5-10 years of what you're building, not only from a business perspective, but I think work-life balance is probably a really big myth, right?
Yeah, I don't believe in work-life balance.
I don't
I think there's something called harmony, right?
Ooh, that's a good way to put it.
When I'm with my family, I'm with my family, like all in. When I'm with business, I'm with business.
Yeah.
Right. And I go through the process of moving back and forth. Sometimes there's a blended, right? Like I bring my kids into business. I bring my wife into business, and we share that existence in those moments. But again, I'm all in wherever I am. So like, as an example, my family and I, we were gone for, I think, a little more than a month this summer. We just went away. We were in Spain.
Yeah, I saw that.
Spain, we went to Turkey. And because again, my wife and I believe that the world is a way better classroom than any 4 walls would ever be. So we always want to teach our kids about new cultures and new experiences and show them the world.
Do you homeschool?
We do not. Mm-hmm. That was also a choice. So I'm going to say something that is going to get me in trouble. I know it, but I'm just going to be genuine with you. My wife and I had many conversations when we were about to have kids. And one of the conversations we had was that there is this thing called public school that is kind of ridiculous.
Complete garbage.
But stupidity exists in the world. And I would rather my kids get exposed to it in a context where I have the ability to immediately talk about what was stupid and not stupid, right? So they go to school and we come home and we have conversations. What did you learn today? What did you experience today? What were the challenges that happened today? Like all of those things have an impact. Whereas if we just homeschooled, the reality is while they would be surrounded by just our values, it doesn't necessarily shape who they are in a way that's truly able to be truly free in their own regard. I want them to make amazing decisions, but the ability to make amazing decisions means you have to be exposed to bad decisions too, in a way that is way different than us just telling you what the bad decision was.
That is the most interesting argument I've heard for presenting.
But in all reality, we're probably not going to stay in public school forever, right? Yeah. My kids are so young. Yeah. I think this age is a good age to expose them. Yeah. We'll likely go into a private environment as they get older, again, for different reasons.
Yeah.
I recently sat for 10 years almost, I think, on a board of trustees for a university. So I have conflicting beliefs about the education system. In fact, I gave presentations for the university, and the title of my talk is "Don't Waste Your Time Going to University." I got a lot of like harsh looks from the president when I gave that speech. But the concept is, no matter what you do in life, whether it's going to traditional school, whether it's going to private schools, whether it's not going to school at all, don't waste your time. So whatever you do, make the most of it. Get a return on that investment, because time is your most valuable commodity. Yeah. Quite literally, it's limitless in its value. Like time is worth more than any dollar you will ever make.
Yeah.
So you always want to invest it wisely. So you always want to look for the return. Now, I'm doing that with our kids. We're talking about that actively. So, because we talk about money around the kids all the time, because they're not going to get exposed to that in any other way.
Yep.
So money is just a tool. So we talk about it openly, like we would talk about a pencil, right?
Yep.
It's just common vernacular in our household. The process, though, of getting them to the outcomes that my wife and I desire, we want them to be in a position of having an unfair advantage. Right. I think all parents do. All parents want their children to have an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%. Yep.
I'm an unapologetic capitalist. Unapologetic about it.
Capitalism, libertarian, baby. It is the best life ever.
Amazing system that has ever existed on the planet because it creates this opportunity for individuals to engage in a voluntary transaction where both parties win. Because, but for the capitalism environment, one party would lose. Right. Voluntary capitalism means both parties win, because if I exchange the $1,000 with Apple and they give me a phone for it, the phone to Apple is not worth the $1,000. Otherwise, they would not have given me the phone. Right. And the phone is worth more to me than the $1,000. Otherwise, I would not have given them my $1,000. So we both win in that transaction. Both parties are better for it. The concepts of capitalism and money and ecosystems and values, these are all things that as a parent, we are responsible for making sure our children are exposed to it. Marina and I just believe that the best way for us to do that while the kids were younger was to expose them where we still have the ability to have conversation with them immediately after. Because if they get exposed later on in life, they're not necessarily going to come to us and say, Mom, Dad, I heard this. Is this true? Right. Especially when they're in the teenage years, because that's the rebellious time. Right. But the concept is this, when they're kids, I can have those conversations. What did you learn today in school? What did you agree with your teacher about? What did you disagree with?
And I think that right there, critical thinking. I say that, morality aside, right? Because I think that everyone needs to have a moral compass. But morality aside, if there's one thing that you could instill in people, in children, it would be delusional self-confidence. And number two is critical thinking. Right? If you can instill those two things, I'm like, forget everything else, right? Everything down of a successful person, I think boils down to those two things there.
100%.
Okay, I want to do some rapid fire questions as we wrap up here.
Good.
I know you got to get an FHL, and then
I have to fly. I'm supposed to head to the airport.
I will be following you out here. So some rapid fire questions here. First, my own personal question: what is the biggest force that you feel like is pushing against you? Right, right now, maybe it's business, maybe it's in life. The thing that you feel like you're pushing against that is causing resistance in your life.
Time.
Really?
Time is non-renewable resource, right? So every day delayed is a day you don't get back. So I'm always mindful of it.
Couldn't that be also on your side though too?
It could be. It could be a motivating factor, right? But the reality is I want to change the world and I have hopefully 100 years left to do it. Right. But that's still a limited amount of time.
Right? Okay. All right. That's fair. What is the best, this is from the community, by the way. I'm reading these off here. What is the best place to store capital right now for future asset purchases? Let's go. Is that for real your answer?
Let's go. I think diversification of storage of capital is important, right? Because
he said Bitcoin, by the way.
I pointed to the Bitcoin on the wall. I think cryptocurrency is an avenue. I think is an avenue.
There's Bitcoin.
There's Bitcoin.
Just over.
Very true. Very true. There's Bitcoin and there's a variety of other cryptocurrencies that are out there that could potentially be storage of capital environments. But there's also fiat that is storage of capital too. So you could go into treasuries as an example in order to safeguard those resources. There's also just actual assets that have liquidity built into them based on what's happening in our society. For instance, real estate. Right now, we are well underbuilt with regard to the houses that are needed. So if you store capital in that environment, but your storage needs are not needing to get access for the next 10, 15, 20 years, that could be an environment for storage as well, because there is an appreciation potential that's there. But storage of capital is way different than the concept of savings. I think savings is stupid. Savings is a passive relationship with your money. Storage of capital presupposes that there is a reason you're storing capital. So if you're going to put money aside, the very first thing you should be saying before putting money aside is, why am I putting money aside? For what purpose? What am I going to acquire with those resources? Because if you don't put your dollars to work, they become the employee of someone else. So you have to be very intentional with the dollars you have.
That's good. Okay. Next one, Tiffany's asking about her paying her daughter salary from business, structure, things around that.
Okay.
I'm gonna reframe the question a little bit because we do not have time to actually break this down, which would be, what is the best starting point for someone that wants to be able to pay their kid from the business or have their kid involved in there for, getting the tax advantages of that? Like, what's the best starting point for that?
There's a lot of rules that go into paying your children in business. And one of the reasons why a lot of business owners want to do it is because they get to shift income from their tax bracket to their child's tax bracket, which is effectively zero for all dollars under $14,600 in 2024, right? So you can essentially pay your child $14,600 and pay zero income tax on those dollars, and then use those dollars to spend on the child the way you normally would have anyway, right? So you're just taking advantage of the tax code in such a way where you get to accomplish two things. Thing number one is you shift and reduce your tax burden. Thing number two is you get to bring your child into your business, which gives you the opportunity to have business conversations and talk about money and talk about all the things that they're not going to learn in traditional school system, right? So that, in my opinion, is by far the better environment. Now, when you're wanting to do that, you have to know the rules. So under the tax code, if you are the parent of the child being employed, and that child is a minor, which means they are age 17 years or younger, you can pay them as long as the business is the only owner of the business is a parent of that child. You could pay that child and not have to withhold Social Security or Medicare or unemployment, right? So you save on the dreaded F word in taxes. What the FICA, right? You save on that. So that's why it's a very attractive system. But most business owners do it the wrong way. Like most business owners will hear someone, financial guru online saying, oh, I need to set up an S corporation. Well, that's great. But if you set up an S corporation and pay your kids in that, you have to withhold. It's a requirement, right? If you're going to pay them any type of compensation, you have to do a FICA withholding. But if you just simply set up either an LLC or even a sole proprietor as a family management company, and the children are employed there, and your other businesses employ the family management company for a service, the children render the service, the family management company can pay the child, not do any withholding, and you get to save on the taxes because you're shifting it from the tax environment from you over to your child, which is effectively zero. So there's a lot of movements there. I have a whole course inside of our community that teaches how to actually hire your kids the right way.
The uplevelcommunity.com. Look at that. We're going to link it down below for sure. Okay. This next one, I'm going to say, I want you to answer it in the shortest possible way. Which I understand. What are your thoughts on whole life insurance?
Okay.
Specifically, the question is, what are your thoughts on whole life insurance? But I'm going to say, let's assume that there is a correct way to set it up. Okay.
There is.
There definitely is, right? What are your thoughts on whole life insurance?
So whole life insurance is just like any other tool. It is a tool for a particular purpose. Like you wouldn't use a hammer to fix a broken window. So you have to make sure you're using the tool for the right outcome. But it is not an investment alternative. It is a risk mitigation tool, which shifts risk to a counterparty, which is the insurance company for a risk event. In life insurance, it's about death, right? So you're shifting risks to a counterparty. Now, whole life insurance is an interesting animal because it has a cash value component. But so many of these internet gurus will get online talking about how you can borrow money from your own life insurance policy. That's not true at all. What's happening is you're borrowing money from an insurance company and they are collateralizing the cash value in the policy. That cash value is not yours. In fact, if you took that cash value out in its entirety, the insurance policy would lapse, goes away. Cash value there is to support the life insurance policy. It's not for you to take money from. You get to borrow money from the insurance company, and they have this amazing deal because when you pay it back, you're paying them back interest. All these financial gurus say you're paying yourself back. Well, that's not true. Now, the cash value is accumulating in value. There's typically some sort of crediting rate that's associated with it, but that's not your money. That's the money you get to collateralize against a borrowed dollar. But those dollars that you send back to the insurance company in loan repayment, well, those dollars are interest income to that insurance company. Now, in a well-structured policy, you may not have to pay that loan back, right? Because you may have sufficient cash value to offset the interest charges that are associated with that loan so that the cash value is accumulating at least equal to what the interest would be on the loan. In that case, you'd never pay back the loan, but it eventually does get paid back at your passing because your death benefit is reduced by the amount of loan outstanding.
But it isn't, you're not borrowing against your death benefit.
No.
Yeah. That's the number one thing
it's completely wrong.
Yeah, completely wrong.
Yeah.
When I learned about whole life insurance, I learned the first time I learned about it the right way. So I learned about it from Brad and I didn't see it as an investment tool, right? I got risk mitigation, whatever. And then he was like, and you can borrow against it. And I was like, borrow? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, that means debt. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, that means tax-free.
Tax-free.
Like, yeah. And I'm like, so cool, right? Okay, a couple more here really quick. What is the number one thing that you see as an opportunity for entrepreneurs or people in general to take advantage of in tax savings that are not otherwise taken advantage of? Like the biggest area that's over not taken advantage of.
Well, I'd say the number one thing that most business owners don't take advantage of would be things like the home office deduction, like the small deductions.
Yep.
Now, don't get me wrong, they can add up, but when you collectively put them together under something like an accountable plan, as an example, that's a way to magnify the benefit by aggregating it all in one place. But the thing that has the most impact tends to be things outside of those types of deductions, things like depreciation deductions under investment real estate, right?
Yeah.
The ability to do bonus depreciation gets a maximum amount of dollars out because you essentially pull Uncle Sam into being your partner for the down payment. Why? Because you get to tax savings that really makes up for your ability to acquire the real estate in the first place. Yep. There's, again, a lot of strategies that go around it, and I teach all this stuff inside the community.
Okay, cool. Last set of rapid fire questions. We kind of asked everybody these. I think it's a good point, start or end point as we wrap it up. First off, thank you.
100%. No, thank you.
Seriously, this is awesome. And
I'm glad we could figure it out because I flew from Fort Lauderdale to Denver, got off the plane to come here, and now I'm going right back to the plane to fly to Las Vegas.
Yep, and I'll be joining you guys tomorrow. And I'll be down at your place next Friday.
Yeah, I think so. I think
so literally I'll see you be down there. So
awesome. Love it.
This. Okay, the Uplevel community is where people can find you. Yep. We will link all that down below. We'll link your Instagrams and stuff, although I'm sure a lot of people do know you. What is one book that you think every entrepreneur should read, specifically entrepreneurs?
Ooh. Psychology of Money.
Psychology. Oh, interesting. Okay, I read that about 12 months ago. It's fascinating.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
It helps to reset the mindset on what money is and how your mental relationship with money impacts so much other things that happen in your life. Excellent book.
Okay. Who's one person that you want to meet before you die?
There's so many. What do you think? Oh, I don't know. There's too many to single one person out because they're all amazing humans. I just want to meet more great people, right?
Yeah, that's a boring answer.
I
know it's true.
It's not one person though. Like there's so many individuals that are doing some amazing things. Like Ray Dalio is an amazing individual. I've been in the same room with Warren Buffett. I haven't physically met him one-on-one, but been in the same room with him. Amazing individuals in the financial space, right? But there are also some amazing people, just interesting people like Elon Musk and like humans that are actually doing things to change the world. I have a magic wand in my hand,
Edward, and I can wave it. And right now you can go instantly. They will appear and you get to meet them. Who is it?
Let's sit down with Elon. Elon's a fun guy.
That's the number one answer we get by far.
Yeah, let's sit down with Elon.
Yeah, that's mine. 100%. Yep. So, okay. What's one bucket list item that you have not yet accomplished yet in your life that you want to accomplish?
Well, so it's not my bucket list item. But it is. Like I want to see my kids' success. So I haven't seen it yet. It'll happen.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen it yet.
That's probably one of the best answers we've seen. I've heard. Okay. Last question. I want you to fast forward to the end of your life. You're on your deathbed. And every single person that you've been called to impact, not every person you've interacted with, but every person you've been called to impact, they forget everything you've ever taught, everything you've ever said is all deleted, but you get to leave them with one final message, one final piece of advice that they will believe and live at face value, no justification needed. What is it?
Don't wait until the end of your life to start living it.
Thank you.
100%.
I appreciate it. That was great. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on. Guys, we'll link everything down below. Edward Verified. You'll forever be Edward Verified. Thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
100%. Thank you.